Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, spring training comes to a close, so we'll do a little wrap-up report on the Yankees, who's hot, who's not going into the season, and of course go over the big news. Anthony Volpe will be in the opening day lineup for the New York Yankees. Kind of a bit of a surprise, but not really. We'll kind of, give you my thoughts on that, as well as just go over some of the latest injuries. Of course, Luis Severino, kind of a blow to the Yankee rotation. And a little fun at the end. We'll do a little Yankee opening day trivia to test your knowledge of the Yankees. And I won't go too far back, but there's going to be a couple of tough ones in there, but a couple of easy ones there. So you want to get all that before we start. Got a whole season ahead of us, and maybe you didn't do it last season. I don't know why you didn't do it last season, but there's an audio podcast version of the show. Get additional content you can't see here, TV, or anywhere else. It's only for you podcast subscribers. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, look up Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe, and again, we have a whole season ahead of us. Get some takes, you get some hot takes, get some cold takes, get some fan memories by me, getting stuff you can't get to see here. So make sure you subscribe. So you recall when the Yankees began spring training, obviously they invited Jason Dominguez as well as Volpe there. Now, they kind of told us off the bat that Jason Dominguez, there was no shot he was going to make the team. Again, they just kind of wanted to get him a little experience there. But they kind of put up there that there might be an opportunity for Volpe to join the team. But it was still kind of like he really has to blow the doors off the handles. Well, he blew the doors off the handle, winning the shortstop job. It was kind of a trio there with Oswald Peraza as well as IKF. But of course, Peraza didn't really have a terrible spring training, but Volpe, the numbers spoke for themselves, and he just kind of forced Boone's and Cashman's hand there, man. Hitting over 300, 3 home runs, 16 hits in total, 5 stolen bases, and not only with the bat, but as well defensively, just looks very comfortable there. Playing the infield for the Yankees, so really had no choice. I mean, it'd be hard to keep this guy down. At least you could use the excuse with Dominguez, even though Dominguez was mashing as well. That hey, look, he's only 19 years old. We still want to get him a full season, at least of double and triple A under him, just to a little more season before bringing him up. Obviously, Volpe had kind of got enough experience in the minors last season, so he would have been a little bit more ready of the two. But it really took a tremendous spring by Volpe to get this honor, and looks like again he worked for it and got it, and it's just for a 21-year-old, kind of gives you reminiscent of Derek Jeter. In fact, even '96, we didn't think Derek Jeter was going to be Derek Jeter. Kind of just it was just kind of like hey, well, Tony Fernandez hurt his groin, they brought Jeter up, and then Jeter just exploded. So this guy comes with a lot more expectations than Jeter did back in ~96. So we'll see how he handles it. But again, he just seems very mature. Everyone just says great things about him, and just seems like this is a really good guy. So this is good for him. Congratulations for him. Unfortunately for Peraza, he will be start the season in AAA. Now we kind of thought it'd be the other way around. Even with Volpe having maybe a better spring than Peraza, they figured this with Peraza since he was up last season. Again, they used him in the playoffs, and again he looked confident and fine there. You figured even with that, still Volpe would probably start in the minors and would give the nod to Peraza. But again, this Volpe was just so good spring. Really, I mean, the whole spring has just been hot. So I mean, you can't really argue against it. So I mean, he did win out the job, and of course with IKF, they're gonna try him out. We'll see how this center field thing that really takes, if they're really gonna use him out there fully. I mean, obviously he would be normally the shortstop there, but at shortstop, but with Volpe, obviously much better offensive weapon than IKF there. So kind of makes IKF a little bit the odd man out. We'll see what goes there. But again, he can play third if he needs to be, and we'll see. Maybe just they put him in center until Beta comes back. But he's obviously gonna have to fight for some playing time there himself. And this is something that I think the fans been wanting. It'll be hard to sell to the fans and how to have Volpe start the season, just how good he's been this spring. And it's just good to see the Yankees finally do this. You see they always put the handcuffs on their players. You see what they did with Job Chamberlain, the Job rules, and then I always have like Andahar and Clint Frazier come up, go down, go up, down, up, down. It seems like they messed a lot of these guys up. It's just good now. Play the young guys if he's ready. I understand with Dominguez, maybe figures he's a little too young. Okay, I understand that one. But if Volpe seems ready, throw him out there. You see what the Astros did with Pena, and that paid off, and hopefully it pays off for the Yankees. So Volpe is the, number one news story to end of spring training for the Yankees. Probably the number two. It's probably a little bit bad news that Luis Severino is going to be on the IL to start the season. Again, the Yankees rotation, going into the season, our eyes were wide. You figure, we're going to have Cole, and then they sign Rendon. You have Severino, number 3, Nestor coming back, number 4, and Frankie Montas hopefully bounces back. After disappointing 2022, well, that's pretty much all gone to shambles. Now, not totally, because they're all coming, most of them are coming back. Montas maybe towards the end of the year, but of course, bad news for the Yankees not having Severino there to start the season. Now, he did not have a good spring, we know that, and he was kind of saying, well, I'm working on stuff, I'm working on my slider, don't worry about it. And he kind of felt confident, he's a veteran, even though he's a young guy, but still a veteran. It's like, okay, fine, he's working on stuff. Well, it turns out probably why he hasn't been really that good this spring is that the lat that bothered him last season, Pace had strained it again. Now, supposedly it's not as bad as the strain was last season, which pretty much took him out almost for all the second half of the season, even a little bit of the first half as well. I mean, he got off to a great start of the season, but had that lat issue, and then you didn't see him until September, had a couple of warm-up games, and then was very good in the playoffs and effective, but unfortunately, it could be a situation where we're looking at that again, really. Again, anytime we go with a lat or an oblique, it's just kind of tricky to timeline, so they're not really giving a timeline, but they said the strain isn't as bad as last season. But again, very disappointing to start the season. Of course, with Rendon, again, having the forearm issue with him, he's probably not going to be available to at least the later part of April. So, you at least you're looking forward to this, like, even though you had the news, okay, you were going to have Montas, okay, fine, you kind of accept that. Figure, I put Herman or Schmidt in the number 5 hole, that's fine. But now you lose 2 other studs like that. Now you're really starting off the season, kind of your starting rotation, a little bit of shambles. Now, early in the season, don't worry about too much because you're not going to really stretch your starters out that much, and you can probably use your middle relief and bullpen guys a lot. So again, not really terrible, but you got to be worried that because now it's the same injury that Severino had last season, and it's just hard to put a timeline on it. So we just got to hope it's not a situation like last season that dragged on and on and on. Now, according to Severino, he said again during the playoffs that the Yankees, they held him out too long. He could have came back much sooner, but they're going to baby them because obviously, they want to make sure that he avoids a huge chunk of time that happened last season. So we'll see, how far that goes. But in the meantime, the Yankees, do have a couple of options. Of course, and the ironic part that Severino's last start before this injury was announced was probably his best one. It had 9 strikeouts. So it looks like he was on his way there. But I guess just cropped up now, so they're gonna have to shut him down a little bit, and he's probably gonna have to start all over again in a way. But again, the Yankee options there. Of course, we had Clark Schmidt. Again, having a pretty decent spring. ERA is a little high, over 5 there, but he's added this new cutter and it seems to be quite effective. So he's probably someone's. He's probably going to get some of those starts as well as now Domingo Germán, who has not really had a good spring, but is kind of out of default. Kind of have to go with him there. You also have Johnny Brito. Again, impressive. His last outing, 16 up, 16 down. Some perfect frames there. So that's something to be thrown into the mix. But of course, you have your ace Cole. That's fine. And then eventually, with a week or 2 into the season, Ness will be available. So again, it's not terrible, but it's just kind of annoying because your expectations was at least having those 4 horses up there at the top. Now you're just going to have like 2.5 horses in this. You got to hope that Rendon comes back at some point. And as spring training was winding down, it also meant the end of the World Baseball Classic, the 2023 version of it. And it was a huge success. Again, the final game, Japan beating Team USA with Ohtani striking out his teammate Mike Trout there in a big dramatic spot. And the feedback and the ratings were great. It was actually better than some MLB postseason games back from October there. So, this was probably the best, I guess, display for the World Baseball Classic. So, it means a lot moving forward. And you may remember a few episodes ago, had Shorten Spradling, he's kind of an expert on the World Baseball Classic there, kind of previewing it there. So, this is kind of a good wraparound. And, of course, the star of the show was basically Ohtani. This was basically his kind of center stage for him, which, he can't really get with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, just playing on a team that's terrible there. And kind of you're hearing that word that he would like to go play somewhere else, maybe the Mets, just get somewhere on a bigger stage, and you can see what he could do there. And speaking of Ohtani, he's going to get a real big payday in 2023. So with his contract extension, he has a 1-year extension on the contract for $30 million. So again, now he's a 2-way player, so they guess they wanted to, arbitration-wise, he could maybe get a little bit more there, but they settled this 1 year for $30 million. But according to Forbes, he's getting another $35 million just from endorsements. So it's $65 million that Ohtani is expected to make here in 2023. And of course, he's going to be a free agent after the year end. Is who knows what type of money he's going to get. And of course, you hear words like the Dodgers, and of course, you hear the Mets, Steve Cohen. I don't think the Yankees are going to be players for him, just because I'm sure he would like to play for the Yankees, but again, you have to bid against the Dodgers and even the Mets, and it kind of feels funny that the Yankees having to compete against the Mets and maybe can't compete against the Mets. That's with Cohen, but I don't think Hal is going to spend the big bucks on Ohtani there like that after he just spent $360 million on Judge there. So even though Ohtani may want to come here, if you're a Yankee fan, I just don't see because if he's going to be making like $30 million this year, he's going to be. You're looking at maybe possibly a $50 million year or $60 million for this guy per season. And I can see the Dodgers playing that. I can see the Mets paying that. I can't see the Yankees and Hal Steinbrenner paying that. So no hopes of Ohtani coming to the Bronx. So for the Yankees this spring, they finished several games under 500. Now, it's not really something to worry about, but you like to kind of have like a winning attitude and just have a accustomed to winning going into the season. Now, you can have a great spring and then, lose your first 4 games in a row of the regular season, and it doesn't really matter. But with the Yankees, they started off well, but, towards the middle and part of spring wasn't that great. So we'll look at some of the players, maybe some that you should worry about, maybe you shouldn't worry about, and maybe some that will surprise you. So I'm not going to really grade them A, B, or C, D like that, but I'll just point out some players, someone like a Michael King, who, again, coming back from injury. How was he in spring? Because he's going to be an important cog, as well as Clay Holmes, who was, again, pitched in the playoffs kind of injured there, and you was like to see him healthy, and be the Clay Holmes we saw at the beginning of last season when he was probably maybe the best closer in baseball. So we'll look at a couple of players there. Again, who's hot, who's not, and again, who's surprising you. So right off the bat, I'd be worried about Giancarlo Stanton. Now, I remember last season, he was an all-star for the Yankees, but again, got hurt a little bit, was out for a while, came back, and really wasn't an effective player for him in towards the end of September there, and in October didn't do much for the Yankees. Again, looked pretty hideous there, just striking out a lot, and this looks slow and looks sluggish, and kind of it would make you worry a little bit. You figure, all right, maybe a little off season he'll come back with a little more pep in his step, but this spring has not been good for him at all. Again, 0 home runs, hitting only 222, just has like 10 hits in 45 at bats and 3 RBIs. Really nothing to be impressed with. Here's a guy who could potentially hit like 40, 50 home runs, and he has 0 for spring. So that's got to concern you a lot. Just in fact, also, he did not have a good second half of last season. He's kind of someone you have to worry about as well, just because he's under contract for a couple more seasons, and you're on the hook for this guy. And just seemingly, as a DH, or even wants to play outfield a little bit, at the very minimum, he's got to be mashing some home runs. So hopefully that's, maybe it's just a swing thing, maybe it's just a hot cold thing, and maybe he'll heat up once the season starts. But again, he had an ice cold spring, and he's got to be worried about a little that. Now Rizzo, kind of the same case, only hitting 211, just only had like 1 home run in spring. So again, that's kind of pitiful. Again, he's a guy that for the Yankees, he had like 32, 34 home runs for the Yankees last season. So again, you would like to see him get a couple more long balls in spring. That wasn't the case there, and only 8 hits in 38 at bats. So really not that good. Again, hitting 211. So those two are supposed to be, kind of your, we'll see the way Boone makes a lineup, but more often than not, they're going to be your 3 and 4 hitters right in the middle of the Yankee lineup there. And if they're your main power hitters, really provided no production in spring training, so that's got to worry you a lot there if you're a Yankee fan. And probably the top 4 is going to be most often than not. You're probably going to see DJ leading off. You'll probably see Judge in number 2 hole. Probably Rizzo in 3, and then Stanton at 4. And then after that, there's variations depending who's playing. If Donaldson playing, is Gleyber Torres playing, is Volpe playing, that will work out. But those are going to be a top 4. But for 2 of those 4 to not have a good spring training, again, that's got to be worrisome. And on the pitching end, I'd be worried about Domingo Germán, pitching to an ER of 8.71 in spring. Again, got bombed around a lot, and he's someone you're going to have to depend on, because if at first you thought, all right, he'll possibly be a replacement for Frankie Montas in number 5 hole there. Well, now with both Severino and Rondon out for a while, you're gonna have to depend on Germán probably for a couple times through the rotation, at least till those 2 guys come back, at least one of them come back. And again, he's had a bit of an ugly spring, so it doesn't bode well for the Yankee rotation to at least start the season. But the 2 other Yankee position players I mentioned that would be on the top of the Yankee lineup, that would be DJ LeMahieu and Judge, have had good spring trainings, and mainly you're worried about not really Judge with the contract or stuff, but more DJ, of course, had the fractured foot from last season, which again made him unavailable for the playoffs for the Yankees, and obviously he opted not to have the surgery, instead of just did non-surgical rehab. Seemed like it's worked, and he's had a decent spring, hitting upwards to 333. Only 1 home run, that's okay, with 5 RBIs, but again, he's a guy at the top of the lineup there that you just want him spraying the ball, you want him to get on base, and let the guys behind him hit the home runs there. So good spring training for DJ LeMahieu so far, and just again, hopefully not having the surgery on the foot, it was the right move, and hopefully it's not something that crops up on him later in the season. And as for Judge, I mentioned, getting upwards of 359, only 2 home runs, but still it's okay. It's Judge, it's fine. 7 RBIs, but he's looked good. So it looks like the big contract hasn't really affected him. You might figure you'll just be a little skittish of that, but again, he's just Judge is Judge. He's cool. He can handle the stuff, and having a good spring training. So I didn't think that would affect him, and it hasn't affected him. And he's been good in the field as well, gunning guys down, on the bases there. So Judge looks like Judge. DJ looks like DJ. You just have to make sure that. I don't really worry about Rizzo's more, but with just really Giancarlo Stanton, because he had a miserable second half of 2022. So just hope that doesn't carry on to start the season. And even though Anthony Volpe has been getting all the hype, and deservedly so, but really pound for pound, you could probably say the Yankee player who had probably the best spring training has been Oswaldo Cabrera there. Again, so you figure maybe last season came up, he'll be a little cocky, but no, I mean, he's been actually hitting upwards of 340 with 18 hits, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, again, playing multiple positions. So, again, he's not going to get the fanfare of Volpe. This is because all the expectations of Volpe, but Cabrera has had a tremendous, again, you might make the case he had probably the best spring training of all the Yankee players, and of course, he's probably definitely going to take that left field job once the season starts there from Aaron Hicks, who hasn't been terrible. Hicks, you know, obviously only 1 home run, and Hicks only hitting around 280, so okay for him, I'll take that, but head above shoulders, Cabrera definitely would get the nod over Hicks in left field because, you know, just Cabrera's just looking phenomenal there. It's just, you know, he just right now he's just not getting all the fanfare Volpe is, but again, he looks great for the Yankees. I'm not gonna say, I mean, even though technically he came until the end of last season, but technically it's kind of like his second season as a Yankee. And again, he seems very mature. Does not seem like he's being cocky about it, and he's taking this seriously. And again, hitting well over 300. And again, great way to start the season. Now, one Yankee player who a lot of fans had their eyes on, probably want to burn a hole for him, has been Josh Donaldson. Again, you heard a lot of fans calling to, you know, trade him, get rid of him during the offseason. Well, kind of hard. He makes a lot of money, so, you know, you knew at some, you know, pretty much the Yankees were going to at least have to start the season with him. But you want to see, you know, can he bounce back, at least have a better season than last season? And so far this spring has been decent, hitting up towards 263. 4 home runs as well as 10 RBIs. Now, supposedly he tweaked his swing a little bit. Remember, Donaldson always has that high leg kick, and maybe this leads to a lot of strikeouts. So far, so average-wise, a little bit better. Again, last season he finished at 222. Again, this was miserable during the playoffs, and both him and Hicks were hearing it from the fans, but mostly Donaldson, I say, was probably public enemy number 1 there. So if you want to look at Hicks, again, hitting a little around 280, okay. Again, only 1 home run you're not impressed with, but looking to see Donaldson bounce back a little bit, and again, maybe tweaking the swing will help him a little bit. Again, 37 years old, so, you know, as you approach 40, you don't see him getting any better, but it's hard to see how he could be any worse than he was last season, which is just very disappointing. Again, he's not he's a guy who figure at least hit like around 20 home runs and, you know, at least maybe hit around like 250, 260 like that. So if he's hitting 260 now, maybe, again, he could be a better version of he was last season. Defensively, he'll be fine. You don't really worry about him there. You just can't have, you know, hit like 222 because that's just putrid. It's too many strikeouts, and especially during the playoffs there, it was just awful for him. So good to see him, and again, hopefully he surprises us all and has, you know, a decent year at third base. Now, if the Yankees have any sort of World Series aspirations, they got to make sure that their, you know, 2 guys at the back of the bullpen, Michael King and Clay Holmes, are top notch. Because again, you need those guys like to be 100%. That's probably the Yankees' best shot, you know, to get to the World Series and win it. And again, a little questions mark about them. Again, King went down last season, needed the surgery. Clay Holmes had the shoulder issue. Again, he was able to gut out in the playoffs, but you know, can they come back and be full? And again, you think when the Yankees kind of sort of faltered a little bit last season, when they were kind of almost at 40 games over 500, the first, again, domino fall was Michael King. And again, had the offseason surgery, and he was ready for spring training. You want to see, all right, can he bounce back? Can he be the King he was last season? Well, so far, based on spring, seems to be that guy, pitching to an ERA under 1 with 11 strikeouts and 9.2 innings. So again, it's only about a sample size of 10 innings. But again, he looks like the guy we saw last season. So good, that's really great news for the Yankees, as well as Clay Holmes, pitching to an ERA a little under 2 with 6 strikeouts in 5 innings. So again, small sample sizes, but again, you need your 8th and 9th inning. I mean, remember back in the old days with the Yankees and Rivera and Stanton and else like that, you need top line relievers. Now the Yankees dodged a little bit of a bullet that this past offseason, was able to use Loaizaga and Waldy Peralta and kind of piece things together and use Holmes here and there like that, able to, you know, kind of scotch tape their way through it, and it kind of worked. And again, Loaizaga did, you know, answer the bell, and he was, you know, pretty good, and so it's good to know he can handle that. But still, I think for the Yankees to really go far this season, you need King to be King, and he needs to be the 8th inning guy, and Holmes, we need the Holmes we saw last season, at least before, you know, he had the shoulder issues, and so far they kind of seem that way. So good news for the Yankees. And staying on the pitching end, again, Clarke Schmidt has been getting a lot of accolades during spring training. Yeah, ERA a little high, a little over 5 there, but with 25 strikeouts and 19.2 innings there. So you like to see the strikeouts. Again, he's kind of worked in this new cutter. Seems to be very effective for him. And did start 5 games. So it seems like the Yankees have been stretching him out in spring. So again, expect him to get probably the majority of starts, at least, you know, until the Yankee rotation, you know, gets their pieces back, and mainly in Severino, Rendon. And again, Schmidt been much more effective than Herman, so Herman might get knocked down a peg. Maybe they use Herman in the long relief and then have one of the minor leaguers start some of those games. But you know, until then, I would expect Clarke Schmidt to pick up the slack for the loss of Severino as well as the loss of Rendon until those two come back. So that's a scouting report on the Yankees as we close spring training and can transition to the start of the 2023 baseball season. And since we're around the time period of opening dayness, I figure we'll have a little fun this episode. So we're going to do a little opening day, but Yankee opening day trivia. Throw you some questions out there. I try to make it, not too easy, but not too hard because, honestly, I don't want to ask you about like the 1930 Yankees. I don't think too many people alive that remember the 1930 Yankees. So we'll try to keep it semi-contemporary, but I might throw a few curveballs in there. But leading off, give me the 2 Yankee starting pitchers that started 6 consecutive opening day games in a row. There's 2 of them. Now, I'll give you a clue. They're both a lefty. So think about which Yankee lefty has been around here, well, at least was around here for a while. They maybe say, could have pitched 6 opening days in a row. Now, one of them, I'm going to give you, this is one of the curveball, is from way back when. I'm talking about like the Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth era. So there was a left-hander back then, and there was a left-hander that was much more contemporary. So give you a few seconds, let you think about it. An old lefty from back in the 30s and a more contemporary lefty for the Yankees. Ding! The answer will be CC Sabathia, who did it for the New York Yankees from 2009 to 2014, and then Lefty Gomez, who did it for the Yankees back from 1932 up through 1937. So there you go, 2 lefties. Now, I gave you the lefty clue there, so you can't say it was a trick question. I kind of helped you out. Which position player, so it's a position player, not a pitcher, so I'm helping you out a little bit, started the most opening day games for the Yankees in a row? Now, I'm going to give you a clue, a little hint. I guess you could use the C word, captain. He might have been a captain. So which I guess a captain had the most consecutive opening day games for the Yankees? Do you know any Yankee captains? Are you familiar with any? It's been a couple. I don't want to say the answer, but do you know any Yankee captains? Boom, Lou Gehrig. So now you might think, wait, not Derek Jeter, but no, it's Lou Gehrig with 14 seasons. Did it for the Yankees from 1926 all the way up to unfortunately his final year there in 37. So 14 years there. Now, a close second is, you probably wouldn't be thinking about, and he's not a captain, was Willie Randolph. Actually had 13 consecutive opening day games for the Yankees there, mainly pretty much at second base there. He did that from 1976 up to 1988. Now, you might think, hey, Derek Jeter was a Yankee for like 19 seasons, wasn't he? But you remember that actually in 2001, he actually didn't start opening day. It was actually Luis Sojo. Shortly before, I think in spring training, actually Jeter injured his quad, so he actually wasn't available for opening day. So it was actually, from 96 up to 2000, Jeter started those 5 years in a row. Then you had Luis Sojo in 2001. Now for the next 11 seasons, it was Derek Jeter there from 2002 up to 2012. Now 2013, as maybe you don't recall, actually Eduardo Nunez started shortstop for the Yankees, and that's because in the 2012 playoffs, that was the time Derek Jeter broke his ankle, so again, he wasn't available to start the 2013 season, but he would eventually join the team later in the year, and that would be, again, the final year of both Mariano Rivera and Andy Pettitte, and of course, Jeter was able to play with them. Of course, Jeter came out and took the ball from, I believe, Rivera there in just that final moment at the Yankee Stadium where he got teary-eyed and all like that. So they were, again, now, if the 2001 and the 2013 situations didn't happen, then yeah, you probably would have seen a situation of Derek Jeter starting 19 consecutive opening days in a row for the Yankees. But unfortunately, because of the injury to the quad in 01 and then to the ankle in 13, Jeter missed those 2 seasons there. So still the winner there is Lou Gehrig, who had 14. Okay, so that could have been a little trick question, maybe a little hard, unfair. I mean, you should, as a Yankee fan, know who Lou Gehrig is. And okay, maybe, you played a ton of years, but maybe, it kind of threw you off a little bit. But I'll give you the easy one here, so we'll ease it up a little bit. And this one you should get. Even if you're a young Yankee fan, I think this one should be general knowledge. So who started, I guess the starting pitcher for the Yankees for the 1999 season? So 1999, think of the Yankees starting rotation. Who would start opening day for the Yankees? Shouldn't be that hard. Really shouldn't be hard. 1999. What players were on the Yankees in 1999, and whoever them would be seen as formidable, the best to make the start for the Yankees to start the season? 1999. Roger Clemens. So Roger Clemens came to the Yankees in 1999. Again, that was the big 3-way player trade that sent David Wells and Graham Lloyd up to Toronto. Brought Clemens here to pitch for the Yankees, and he would start the season. Again, it was a lot of expectation for him, and unfortunately wasn't a good start for the season for him. It would be a game that the Yankees would lose to the Oakland A's 8-5. again, Clemens in 99 didn't really have a good season. Again, he had a bit of a groin issue, kind of midway in, so he kind of wasn't 100%, but would, pitch well for the Yankees in the World Series Game 4, clinching for the Yankees. So, yeah, even though it wasn't a great season for him statistically wise, it did start off with a bang with a World Championship. And staying in the same time period as Clemens, and we're hearing all these comparisons with Volpe and Derek Jeter, and the comparison like that, well, he's the next Jeter and all that. So I figure we'll do something very Derek Jeter-ish there. So 1996, who did Derek Jeter on opening day hit his first career home run off of? It was on the road, kind of a coldish day, gray uniform on the road there. Derek Jeter hits a home run off of Dennis Martinez. And finally, and I mentioned this name, because this name actually came up a lot during the World Baseball Classic, the most recent one, so I figured maybe I'll integrate it a little bit with Yankee history and opening day. So let's see if you get, again, if you watch the World Baseball Classic, there might be a name that was mentioned several times, so this one might just come at you, but we'll see. We'll see if you can get this one now. We're going to go to first base. So who started first base for the Yankees on opening day in both the 1983 and 1984 seasons? So who was the Yankee first baseman to start the season? So what 80s Yankees first base, does a name come to your mind? Maybe. Did you watch the World Baseball Classic? Any coaches? Any players doing batting practice? Ken Griffey Sr. So Ken Griffey Sr., the father of Ken Griffey Jr., played first base for the Yankees in the 1983-1984 and started first base there. Now you might think, wait, what about Don Mattingly? So Don Mattingly actually originally came up with the Yankees during September of '82, was like a defensive replacement, and he got his first hit. Actually, it was September 11th of '82 against the Baltimore Orioles. But he was called up for the minors. Now in '83, he also came up to play for the big club, but only played 91 games. But again, wasn't in the starting lineup there for the Yankees. And of course, by '84, he took over the job from Ken Griffey Sr. And then from there, of course, Mattingly became Mattingly. He had those 5 or 6 terrific seasons. But '83, '84, the opening day starting first baseman was Ken Griffey Sr. Now, if you watch the World Baseball Classic, Ken Griffey Jr. was one of the coaches, as well as Andy Pettitte. It was kind of cool to see that. And of course, Ken Griffey Jr. took some batting practice, cracked some balls out there, kind of had that old swing. Yeah, he put a few extra pounds around the waist. Yeah, a lot of retired players like that. But it was good to see that good swing there. So I figured I want to find a way to integrate the World Baseball Classic with this final question. So yes, first baseman. So if anyone stops you in a bar or something like that, that's a good trick one, because most 90% of people are going to think it's Don Mattingly, but no, it was Ken Griffey Sr. in '83 and '84. So I hope you enjoyed those Yankee opening day trivia questions. Use them on your friends and family. You seem like a really smart guy there. Hey, I didn't know this stuff. Well, I won't tell anyone you stole from this show. So the Yankees start the season. I guess fans are going to be happy. That's the idea that, again, Volpe is going to start with, as they say, welcome to the show. Can you handle this? Can you handle the pressure? It's one thing to do in spring training, but now you're doing it now. I think he'll be fine. Again, he just seems to have a certain way about him, a certain makeup that kind of differs from someone like maybe like an Andujar or Clint Frazier. Volpe just seems much more mature than those two were, so I think he can handle it. I think he'll be fine. So I think it's going to be his job to keep moving forward there. Again, offensively, much better than IKF there, so it's going to be hard for IKF, again, to find some at-bats. Other for the Yankees, you worry about Severino being down, as well as Stanton not starting the season hot. But again, we have a long season to go, so don't panic yet.